Sup nerds, here is the deck that womboed my locals. So starting off, we obviously have our Digitama. We're running 4 Wanyamon. When attacking once per turn, if you have a blue Tamer in play, draw 1. Currently probably the best generic blue Tama that we currently have. Just draw power if you have a Tamer. Almost every blue deck is Tamer reliant currently. Onto our rookies, we're playing 4 Veedramon from BT13. He's the best searcher we have in the deck. On play, reveal the top 3 cards of your deck, add 1 Digimon card with Veedramon in its name, and 1 blue Tamer among them, place the rest on the bottom of the deck in any order. The Inheritable is also the best Inheritable we have in the deck. He's the best rookie to see in any opening hand. Your turn, once per turn when you play blue Tamer, gain a memory. Ensures we don't pass turn when we evo into Ulforce before we start our wombo. Then we have 4 more Veedramon. Spoilers, these are all going to be Veedramon. This is from EX1. He has the Inheritable, when this Digimon becomes unsuspended during your main phase, gain a memory. He functions basically the same way as your Veedramon from BT11, because your Ulforce will unsuspend when you play a Tamer, and you'll gain a memory to keep from passing turn. And then last but not least, we have 4 Veedramon from starter deck 8. This guy lets you warp into an Ulforce in your hand for 4 memory if your opponent has a level 6 or higher Digimon in play. It does come up in this format. A lot of decks will just have a boss monster on the field. Royal Knights, Belfie, just stuff like that will just let you promote this guy and just go boom. And then the Inheritable is when attacking, if you have 7 or fewer cards in your hand, draw 1. Not once per turn, so pretty cool. If you end up emptying your hand, you can swing multiple times and draw some more cards. That's it, we're just playing 12 rookies. On to our champions. Best champion in the deck, BT11 Veedramon. His effect is your turn once per turn. When you play a blue Tamer, draw 1. Seems good. The Inheritable is the same as the Veedramon. Your turn once per turn. When you play blue Tamer, gain 1 memory. Keeps us from passing turn. And then our next champion. I really enjoy this one for a little bit of a defensive piece. We're playing 4 gold Veedramon from EX4. Evos for 2 on top of Veedramon, which is all of our rookies. And then Armor Purge, so he can save himself by deletion by purging off the top card. And then his effect is when Digivolving, one of your opponent's Digimon gets minus 2000 DP for the turn. And then if you have a blue or yellow Tamer in play, or if you have a card with the Armor Form trait and it's trash, one of your opponent's Digimon with 6000 DP or less cannot attack or block until the end of your opponent's turn. This is really cool. You can actually freeze Blue Flare and stuff like that, because you can just evo into this guy minus 2k on their Metal Greymon. It goes down to 6k, and then you just freeze it with his secondary effect. Pretty nice. Stun the Stunlock deck, you know. And just really good for getting early chips in since he has Armor Form in his traits. Something you can do is you can have the Warp Veedramon underneath him. Swing security, he dies, so you purge him off. And then you evo the Veedramon into Ulforce, and then he'll unsuspend, and you get to wombo there. A pretty cool card. High utility, I really enjoy seeing him in my hands. And then on to our last champion. We are only playing 9. The Digimon count in this deck is pretty low due to having to make room for all of the blue Tamers. We are playing 1 Veedramon 0. The when attacking effect you're literally never going to do unless you're like really forced to swing over something so you don't just die on their turn. The Inheritable is the good effect. So when attacking, not once per turn, you can place 3 non-Digi-Egg cards from the trash to the bottom of your deck to draw 1. So this will let you recycle some of your Ulforces if like Black War got in and nuked all of them. So you can potentially draw back into those. Not good early game because your trash is basically going to be empty early game. And not good enough to replace the gold Veedramons. As I said, like those are pretty high utility. Good enough to include as our 9th champion. Onto our ultimates, we have 4 Arrow Veedramon from BT11. He's the best level 5 you want to see. Main, once per turn by suspending him, you can look at the top 3 cards of your deck, add all blue Tamers to your hand, place the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. And then his Inheritables, when attacking, activate one of your Arena Shinamiya's on play effects, which is really good at giving your Ulforce evade and blocker again. If you don't have another arena to play, you can just trigger the ones you already have in play. But definitely the best one you want to see. And then on to our other 3 ultimates, we're only running 7. We are playing 3 Arrow Veedramon from BT2. So he has a couple of effects. When Digivolving, if you have a blue Tamer in play, unsuspend one of your blue Digimon. Can come up to just give yourself 1 extra swing with Ulforce or something, or somebody just a swing for game. But the Inheritable is the reason why we're playing him. Your turn, when the Digimon becomes unsuspended during your main phase, it gains jamming. This is really important for all of the Royal Knight matchups and things like that. Just any deck that runs really high DP numbers. Because you don't really want to blow your evade on your Ulforce on something that's not an option. Because it feels really bad because you just lose out on an extra swing every time you have to evade something. And this guy keeps that from happening in those matchups. And then on to our megas. You guessed it. We are playing 4 UlforceVeedramon from BT11. As effect is when digivolving, you may play 1 blue tamer from your hand without paying the cost. And then your turn, when you play a blue tamer, unsuspend him. And then your turn, once per turn, when this Digimon becomes unsuspended, return one of your opponent's level 3 or lower Digimon to the owner's hand. And then for every blue tamer you have in play, add 1 to the max level of Digimon you can choose with this effect. So a couple of stipulations. This is mandatory, and it also doesn't have to trigger during the main phase. Those are 2 things that some people aren't aware of. So like, if you unsuspend during your unsuspend phase, that does proc and it'll bounce something on your opponent's field. And then also, it is mandatory, so the first time you unsuspend during your turn, it triggers. So like, you can't play a bunch of Tamers and then unsuspend them for the 4th time and be like, okay, now bounce whatever you have in play. That's not how it works, unfortunately. It's still really good removal, and just really powerful to be able to pump out blue Tamers, which are some of the best Tamers in the game. And very good. So like, even if you don't win, you gain so much advantage from the Tamers that you just played out for free that you're set up to do whatever you want on the following turn. And then we are playing 1 Ulforce X from BT12. He evos for 1 on top of Ulforce, and then when digivolving, you unsuspend him or one of your blue Tamers. And then all turns once per turn, when he becomes unsuspended, if you have a blue Tamer or you have Ulforce underneath him, return one of your opponent's Digimon with the lowest level to their hand. He is also mandatory, and he also will trigger during the unsuspend phase. So basically the same thing. He's good to get like 1 extra swing in if you need it. Or if you already have a bunch of arenas in play, you can pop off with him and just swing multiple times. That's why we're only playing 1, because you really don't want to see this guy early. And on to the Tamers. We are, of course, playing 4 Rina, Shinomiya from BT11. This is the Tamer you want to see early and often. She's the one that lets you wombo combo on your opponents. So her on play is, until the end of your opponent's turn, one of your Digimon with Vmon or Veedramon in its name gains blocker and evade. Very important when you're womboing into your opponent's security. And then all turns, when one of your Digimon with Veedramon in its name becomes suspended, by suspending this Tamer, activate that Digimon's when digivolving effects. So that interaction is what lets you pop off with your Ulforce, because you just swing with your Ulforce, suspend her, play another Tamer, unsuspend, swing, and repeat, rinse and repeat. And then the other effect is, your turn, once per turn, one of your blue Digimon becomes unsuspended, gain 1 memory. This also triggers during the unsuspend phase, so at the beginning of your turn, if you have a blue Digimon that's unsuspending, you just gain a bunch of memory with each one of these. Very nice. But this is the card you want to see, because this is what lets you do ignorant stuff with this deck. And we are also playing 1 Rina Shinomiya from BT2. So a couple of reasons. I needed a little bit more search power for my levels in this deck, but I also needed extra DP for the Royal Knight matchups and stuff, because if you're 13k swinging into Royal Knight security, you're a lot less likely to die to their checks, because once you hit 13k, there's only a handful of them that you die to. But she also doubles as search for the deck. Her effect is, your turn, one of your blue Digimon attacks, you may suspend this Tamer to give that Digimon 1000 DP for the turn. And then on play, reveal the top 3 cards of your deck and with Digimon card with Vmon in its name among them to your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. What also is really cute is, if you want, you can re-trigger her on play with the BT11 Arrow Veedramon Inheritable. It's like, let's say you're missing something. You can do that if you're like searching for like Ulforce X or something, like finish the game. You can reactivate that effect, which is pretty cool. And then some more Tamers. We are playing 2 Davis Motomiya. He's your memory setter. The reason why we're not playing more of him is because he will bot deck your Tamers, and that's really, really bad, because you need Rina in order to win. So that's why we're only playing 3 cards, search cards, that bot deck Tamers. So like Rina would have been the 3rd Davis had I not felt the need for the 1000 DP. But he reveals the top 3 cards of your deck, add a blue and green Digimon to your hand, place the rest on the bottom of the deck, blah, blah, blah. We don't play green Digimon, so he just adds any blue Digimon in the deck. Bot decks any Tamers he sees, so that's why we're only playing 2. And then we are playing 3 Sora and Joe. Start of your turn, if your opponent has Digimon with no Digivolution cards in play, gain 2 memory. And then your turn, when you attack with blue Digimon, you may suspend this Tamer to trash up to 2 Digivolution cards from the bottom of one of your opponent's Digimon. Very powerful effect, getting rid of sources, protection effects, all that stuff, and then just getting a whole bunch of extra memory at the beginning of your turn. Really annoying for your opponents to play around this card. This has been one of my favorite Tamers in the game since it came out in BT5. I just rarely play blue decks, so like I don't get to play very often, but this card is still very broken, and I've enjoyed playing it in this deck. And then our next Tamer, we are playing 3 V-Tamer Tai. He is one of the very first promos we got in this game. He's promo 12. He's a 2-cost to play Tamer, which is really nice if you're manually having to play Tamers to unspin your Ulforce. Sometimes that can come up to like finish games out. But his effect is main if you have Digimon with Veedramon in its name, specifically not Vmon. It has to be one of your level 4 and ups. You may suspend him to either draw a card or give one of your Digimon 1000 DP. If you're missing pieces, you want to draw cards. If you don't have jamming, you definitely want to give your Ulforce 1000 DP. So he's really nice utility. And then on to our options. Hey, you guessed it. We are playing Ice Wall. This card's broken. It will always be broken. I think it's relatively fair at 1, because you only have to play around it 1 time, and that's it. And if you ever see your opponent bot deck it off a search, you know you don't have to play around it for the rest of the game, which is pretty nice. 1-cost option, pretty dumb. Main, all of your opponent's Digimon gain when attacking lose to memory until the end of their next turn, and then security effect is gain to memory. So for those of you that are unaware of how this card works, you don't gain memory from this when attacking effect, your opponent loses to memory. So like memory blockers don't interact with the main effect of this card. They would obviously stop the security effect, but they don't stop this effect, which is very important. I cannot believe we actually had Nationals with this card at 4. It's crazy. And on to our next 2 options. We are running 2 Sorai from EX3. 4-cost option, main, trash the top 4 Digivolution cards of one of your opponent's Digimon. And then until the end of your opponent's turn, your opponent's Digimon with no sources cannot attack. They can block, however, so that is something you have to be aware of. They can potentially block. The securities activate the main effect. This is really good for Royal Knights, really good for Shine Greymon, really good for Big Stack Deck. You just get rid of like their protection sources and then bounce it with Ulforce, stuff like that. I'm gonna leave these out, and our last option card is actually 1 Full Moon Meteor Impact. It's an 8-cost option, and the effect is return one of your opponent's Digimon to their hand, then gain 1 memory for every 4 cards in their hand. And then the security effect is just put it back to their hand. This is literally Power Corrupt Kakaitis Breath. For those of you that aren't aware, like, there's never going to be a moment in the game where your opponent has less than 4 cards in their hand unless they're playing like Belfumon and they've managed to get down that low. So this is absolutely 100% Power Corrupt Kakaitis Breath. I honestly wouldn't even want to run this card. This would be a 3rd Sorai, but if you are paying attention to how this deck works, you do not have an out, a 2 Quartzmon, if you do not play an option like this. Like straight up, if your opponent Quartzmons you, you lose the game because you can't get over it. And you cannot bounce it because it requires you to unsuspend cards in order to do that. So I don't want to hard lose to my opponent Quartzmoning me. So that's why I'm playing one of these cards. That way I don't feel like completely terrible to play against a deck that has access to Quartzmon. I'm not just like, oh god, when are they going to Quartzmon me because I just lose and I just have to scoop. If Quartzmon wasn't a card, this would absolutely be a 3rd Sorai, but it exists, so we are playing this card. I do plan on showing more gameplay with this deck in the next few videos, so be prepared for that. And if I didn't cover anything, or if you have any questions, feel free to put it in the comments. I'd be happy to answer anything. But I do appreciate you guys stopping by. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy this kind of content. Want to come back for more. But until next time, see ya.